dear students. I suggest to lower our speaking volumes a little bit and get started. We have quite a busy program this afternoon. Welcome. In my dreams, I imagined this room would be filled with students, and it actually came true. It is. And for a reason. You have a good reason to be here, and it's quite important. The information that will be given here is relevant to all those who have chosen the master track architecture or urban design, or tend to, and are in the last year of their bachelor and have strong plans to follow that master track. For all others, the meeting will be less relevant, but I don't think that it fits for most of us, I guess. Architect, the word architect, is a protected title, and before you're allowed to have it printed on your business cards, it requires proper registration. Till next December, graduating from our faculty was enough, if you had the proper master track, of course. That was all it took. You needed the diploma here, and you had to pay the annual fee to the Dutch Architects Register, and you were an architect. From New Year's Eve onwards, from January the 1st, 2015, that will change dramatically. You still need the paper, you still need to graduate here or elsewhere, but you need 2 years of professional experience before you can register in the Dutch Architects Register as an architect. We are very glad, really very glad, that a large delegation representing the Architects Register is present here to inform you and to answer all your pressing questions. I'm very happy to welcome Annemiek Rijkenberg, Miriam Del Cagno, and of course Henk Dul, who would give the presentation itself. They will also be available for questions, all of them. To give you the schedule for the next hour, there will be a 20-minute presentation by Henk Dul going into detail about this current new regulations. Immediately after that, there will be a shorter 10-minute presentation by Julietta Sanders and Jeroen van der Ven from BEP. What that is, they will explain themselves, I suppose. I suggest that we keep the questions till after those three speakers have given. There will be here another 25 minutes left for general questions. That means questions that are relevant not only for you, but also for the rest of the audience. After that, we leave this room because we have to at 1:30. There's also the possibility for your individual questions, questions that are only particularly important for your own personal situation. That will be above in the auditorium. There will be 2 members of the Dutch Architects Association answering your Dutch Architects Register to answer those questions. So far that's clear? Then I would like to give the word to Henk Dul, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy and glad that there's such a big crowd today, and I'm also glad to present today the information about a professional traineeship. It's actually the first time that the Architect Register is present at this university for students. And it's also good that registration has become an important issue for students. My name is Henk Dul. I'm a member of the board of the register and also practicing architect. Just a second. I will explain first some general information because I don't know exactly. Some of you may know a little bit about the architect's title in the Netherlands and the Architects Registration Bureau, but some will not. So first I have some general information. The Dutch architect's title was established first in 1988 and has recently been changed by Parliament in 2010. And there were various changes. I will not explain them all. But the most important is the new professional traineeship. Now, I must make clear that our bureau does not organize this, but we define the constraints and the regulations, and we give information. The architect register, actually, when we're talking about architects, we're talking about 4 different disciplines: architecture, urban planning, town and landscape architecture, and interior architecture. Altogether, there are approximately 14,000 registered architects of these 4 disciplines in the Netherlands. And just to give you an idea, the number of lawyers registered in the Netherlands is about 17,000, so that's pretty comparable in a way. Another thing that is maybe good to know for you is that, of course, there's a lot of difficulties finding a job these days, and there's a lot of people who say, well, there are too many architects in the Netherlands. Well, as a matter of fact, that is not quite true. If you compare to other European countries, we have around 0.6 architects per 1,000 inhabitants in this country, 0.6. Belgium or Germany, it's 1.2, so double. The European average is about 0.9. So if you just look at these figures, there are not so many architects. Until now, you can register if you have done one of the proper educations, and it's presented in this slide. And 3 of them are universities, so Delft, Eindhoven, and Wageningen for the landscape architects. Now get to the professional traineeship. This has been by law after a period of about 10 years of experiments. So the former chief architects from the Netherlands, Jo Koene, started this debate in about 2002. And since then, there has been a lot of experiments with it. And in the end, it was laid down in the Act. The last 3 years, we have, as an architects register, we have been working on a set of regulations. We have to do that according to this Act. So this has been finished. In this period that we were working on that, we had many meetings with all kinds of stakeholders, also with students and young architects, and there were many debates. Why this professional traineeship? Well, there are various reasons that the government decided to implement this. One of the direct reasons was that there was a gap between education and practice. And a lot of things you have to know in practice, or a lot of skills you need in practice, you don't learn in your education. And in most cases, an academic education is not proper for that. That was one important reason. Another important reason was to match with other international standards, especially in Europe, but not only in Europe. Just to compare, on the left-hand side, you see until now the situation in the architect's profession. You see, so the blue part is the practical traineeship period, which is, for instance, in Belgium or the UK, is 2 years. In the United States, even 3 years. And so far in the Netherlands, we didn't have it. You can also compare it to other professions, like a lawyer or accountant, or even medicine people, and they have also 1, 2, 3, or even more years practical traineeship before they can practice their profession. So why is this important for you? It's not only because then you can use the architect's title. But what I personally think is most important is that you get in this period accelerated acquisition of experience and knowledge. So that has also been the practice with the so-called program experiment, which has been on a voluntarily basis in the past years, that people in this 2-year period get much faster their experience. That
alle mensen die nu op de trap zitten, dit is van de brandweer verboden, of staan, kunnen nu achteruit naar zaal 8. Ik ben het wel gezien.
Oké.
Iedereen die op de trap zit of staat. Sorry, staat niet.
Now I'll continue. So far about, let's say, a little bit background information about why this professional traineeship is standard for everybody after 1st of January 2015. You can read more in one of the brochures you may download from our website. Now, what is this period about? What must you do? First of all, well, actually, this period of 2 years contains about 2 things. You have to work, you have to have a job, and you have to follow what we call modules. Now, there has been a lot of misunderstanding about these modules because it's a little bit different than in education. A module is not a large set of work. A module can be just 1 day or 2 days. But it is modules which are trainings, courses, or other events to acquire additional knowledge, understanding, and skills, and which is also very important to reflect on your practice while you're working. How do you manage that? Of course, you have to take care that you have a job or that you are self-employed. So you don't have to work in an office or, for instance, for urban planners at the municipality. You can also have your own office or work freelance, but you have to have work. You have to find a so-called mentor, which is a person, an architect who has been at least registered for 3 years in an office that will probably be your boss. It doesn't have to be, but that seems logic. And when you're self-employed, you have to find a mentor yourself. You may know some people, but for those who can't find a mentor, there will be a list available, I'll explain that later, where you can try to find a mentor. And you have to make a personal progress plan. You have to make a plan what you're going to do in these 2 years. And in this plan, it's open how you do it, but in this plan you have to show what you are going to do, also in your personal situation. So it may be that on some of the aspects you know already a lot, and on others you don't. So that is basically up to you, as long as you fulfill in the end the requirements. I'll come back to that later. And you have to apply at architect registration bureau or through a provider of an integrated program. I'll explain that afterward. Because you have to, the next step is actually you have to choose one of two options of this additional track. So you're working, you have the additional track, then you have to choose, because it's possible that you follow what we call an integrated program. Juliette Sanders is going to explain more about that. Or follow an independent route. So choose your own ways. In both options, is both for people who work in an office, but also people who work on their own. You have to keep a logbook in this 2-year period, and at the end you have to meet the regulations of what we call the required standards, or in Dutch Eindtermen. This is shortly how it works. So you have your diploma, you apply for this traineeship, you choose yourself between the integrated program and the independent route, and in many ways they're very comparable. In both situations you have at the beginning an intake meeting where you present your personal progress plan, then you may get some advice about that. Then you start working, then halfway you have an interim meeting where you can discuss how things are going, and maybe there have been some changes in the plan. And at the end, you have a final meeting. That is in both the options the same. And after that, after the final meeting, you can get registered. A few things about this integrated program. That is a complete program by an authorized provider. So there's an authorized provider. We have to authorize this provider, and you can follow the complete program there. It has all the elements of the program, and especially about the so-called additional track. But they can also take into account personal experience and circumstances. And in this integrated program, there are also coordinators available who can advise you in between. So far, there's one integrated program, the so-called BEP, and Juliette will explain a bit afterwards how this works. So that's the integrated program. Then we have what we call the independent route. There you have to develop your own path and also find your own way with the help of your mentor. You have to choose these modules from various providers. So there are different providers where you can follow modules. You can follow your own personal experience and circumstances, and you have intake, interim, and final meetings with a committee. In this route, there are no coordinators or other advisors available, so you have to really do it by yourself. BNA is one of the providers of these separate modules, so you can follow a training or a course there, and there will be some more available, and we will publish that on the website later. Now, one of the main issues and questions we had from students, and which was also a point of attention from the very beginning, is what about the costs? Because you have to pay for it. The integrated program has one, you could say, fixed fee, so one total fee. And in the independent route, you have to pay the cost of the modules you follow, but you have some freedom to choose models. And you have to pay for the meetings with the committee. That is the cost, and we are still trying to get them as low as possible. next question is how to finance these costs. You have to pay for these costs, but can you get it financed somewhere, partly or in total? For people who are self-employed, so entrepreneurs, they have possibilities of tax incentives. People who work in an office can ask their employer to contribute to the costs. And in the past, many have done so. For people who are very talented, and you all are, but there is a possibility to get a fund at the Stimuleringsfonds in the Netherlands. And at this moment, there's an application at the Ministry of Welfare for extra funding by the government, which will, if they accept this, we will hear it at the end of this month, that would cover about 50% of the costs. Well, who can help you? We are there, of course, to help you. We can, well, at least we can answer questions. And there are many other, the provider of integrated program, but also other providers, and also at the university. We will have, probably starting in October or November, on ArchiNet, there will be a separate open platform for anything which has to do with the practical traineeship. So like there will be a list of the mentors, there will be an overview of modules, there will be possibly work on the site, published on the site. There is also room for announcements and also for debate. So if you have, you can also start questions and debate there. Talking about questions, we have already, of course, we have received many questions, and all the time are receiving questions. We are also discussing that with some sort of advisory board from different students. On our website, you will see many frequently asked questions, so you can look over there. I just picked out some of the questions. So, for instance, people often ask, can I get exemptions? In Dutch, vrijstellingen. The answer is, in general, you can. There are various possibilities. For instance, if you have done a specific item already, either you have worked in an office or maybe you followed a course at the university on a specific item, then you can get some exemptions. But in the end, you have to meet what we call the required standards or the eindtermen. Another question, you have to make a personal progress plan at the beginning, but many people ask, well, can I change that during the 2-year period? Yes, you can. So it's more like, let's say, an idea what you're going to do, and you don't literally have to stick to that. You can change in between. Often in 2 years period, your situation also change, your working situation, as long, again, as at the end you fulfill the requirements. How do I get a mentor? As I said earlier, you have to choose it by yourself, so you don't get a mentor appointed, so you can also choose. So it's, as you are a student, it's, I would recommend that you get a lot of architects in your network, so then you can pick out the people you like. So you have to choose it, but in the end, if you don't succeed, there are some options to help you. We have already a list of people, of registered architects who are willing to be a mentor for a younger architect. can I do the program in English? Well, you can. I'm also presenting today in English, especially for the foreign students. You can you can do it in English. You can do your PPP in English, meetings, logbook. There may be some texts in Dutch while you're practicing. We can't help that, but you can do in English as much as possible. And also the question has been, which is often there is, can I work abroad? Yes, you can. So it's not necessarily to stay in the Netherlands, as long as you have a mentor. And the meetings with the committee, so that is, let's say, once a year, if you do it in the 2 years, those are in the Netherlands, so you have to come over for that. But for other things, you can follow also modules abroad, as long, again, as you fulfill the requirements. So those are just a few general questions, frequently asked questions. You can ask some more afterwards, and you can get more information at the Architects Register, especially on the website, but you can also send an email and, or contact Mirjam Dalcanio and Joke Willekes. Okay, then I will give the floor to Julietta Sanders, who will tell a little bit about the integrated program. So far, that is the only integrated program, and it has been followed the so-called experiment. So for now, I would like to thank you for your attention, and well, the question and debate we'll have after Julietta.
Hi. I'm very glad there are so many people here. Also welcome, and welcome also the other people looking to the film now. And my name is Julietta Sanders. I am in the organization of BEP. BEP is the Professional Experience Program, and we are the organization who is already organizing the Professional Experience Program for many, many years. As you see, we have architecture, interior architecture, urbanism, landscape architecture, and we are starting also to invite engineering to it. Jo Koenen started this more than 10 years ago. So a lot of people, young designers, we don't call them students anymore because you finished your master's study, did this as volunteers. People who finish their study after the 1st of January, they are not volunteers anymore, but it is so nice to do that you also like to do it as a volunteer. I can promise that. Why is it nice to do? You have meetings on up-to-date locations, places where you don't come if you are not in the program. You meet famous architects, and not famous architects who are very good, but you come, for example, in the Stedelijk Museum. You come on the construction site a lot. You learn about how to build. You are there. You are walking in the sand. You're walking in the concrete, for example. But you are always there with all the people from the other disciplines. So you are there with architect, but also with the landscaper. And here you see... this is one of the persons who is participant of BEP, but he is doing this project, and he is telling about his own project there to his colleagues from BEP. You have clients, you have principals, you have consultants, you have specialists. Here you see Jo Koenen working with the group, the man who all invited this. Thijs Asselbergs is also from the organization. He's working with the students and the participants too. You come with your mentor on several places. Here we were at the 3D Print Kennel House in Amsterdam, you know it, in Overhoeks. And everybody, I think, knows Edi Stekete. He's from Eindhoven here. He is a mentor for a long time. Some people are mentor of more participants. Some people are mentor for many years. What do you do? What do you get if you are in PEP? You get the PEP Start Talk. You work with your mentor. You work in an office, in a living lab, or you start your own office. A lot of people do that. Start immediately. If you don't have a mentor, we can help you with this mentor. We call this an inside mentor or an outside mentor. When the mentor is your boss, then it's the inside mentor. When you start for yourself, it's an outside mentor. You can see him 1 day a week, or half a day a week, or 1 day in the 2 weeks, something like that. You get help with your POP, in Dutch, persoonlijk ontwikkelingsplan. Here are some POPs. You can look at them from other participants. We help you with your log. And you get a workshop entrepreneurship for the people who start their own office. Then you get all the semesters. Every month you come together and you learn about a subject. It's the whole country. There's not one place where we go. We are everywhere. These meetings are in these up-to-date locations. Then you get, after 1 year, one of the coordinators, like Jeroen van der Ven, is visiting you in your office, talking about you and your mentor, asking how it's going. You get a large network because you see all these people. You are working together, but all these people who tell you, who come to speak, it's becoming part of your network. Afterwards, you get member of the alumni group, and that's also a very large network. We work multidisciplinaire, and what's new? We have the PEP Living Lab. It is the first Living Lab is already organized and starts the 1st of January. That means the IBA Living Lab. We have, for 6 people, work for 4 days in a living lab, and you get your fee paid by the IBA. So everybody who wants to start, you will see that in our website how it works. And we are making more living labs. We help you getting working in a living lab. Only for 2 years. Afterwards, you have to do it yourself, of course. And that, at the end, you get your PEP conversation with the organization, and then you are finished. If you do this program, the integrated program, you get the title. You have to do it with success, but then you have the title of architect, landscape architect, interior architect, or urbanist. We have also a few places for people who do the independent route, but we like it much more that you join the integrated PEP program, because it's much nicer. It's really much more interesting, and it's not so hard. You have semesters, half a year about cooperation, half a year about internationalization. How do I get work in another country? How does it work to work with an office in another country? Things like that. We have half a year about the projects, and we have a half a year about realization. And the masterclass, entrepreneurship is in between. I don't read all this. You can see it. This is what you learn. You can see this in our website. It's really interesting. You also get some homework. You do that in a project you are doing in your own office. European tendering is standing there. You get it all learned. Really, really interesting. Also, a long list of things you learn. We call this an accelerator because you are learning in 2 years, which you otherwise, if you don't do such a program, you have to do this in 5 years, 6 years, maybe longer, because it's a pressure cooker, because all the time we give you the information, we call it the accelerator. So if you are interested, send us a mail. Our office is in Amsterdam, at the Keizersgracht. This is the last group who finished in June. And then we can promise you that 95% of the participants has work after you finished the BEP program. Thank you very much.
I suddenly realize where the word pep talk comes from, actually. It's time for questions.
What do you think of this?
We'll come to that in the individual round of answers, I think. Come on, guys, there's lots of questions. Yeah, go on. Wait.
Thank you. I first of all would like to say thank you for the presentation, and I'm really excited about these competencies because indeed we don't learn them here at the school. I'm just wondering, there was some talk about costs, but there is no approximation of the cost. Are like possible disadvantages on the job market considered? Because it costs the employer money and possibly it costs the student money. How will that, is that considered?
They want numbers. Yeah, press it.
Thank you for the question. It costs 6,000 euros for 2 years. That's the price. Okay. There are a lot of architects who pay this for you. So you get work. It's your boss who pays this fee for you. So the mentor can pay this. But at the end of the month, we know if we have for 30 people vouchers that you get 50% paid if you get a voucher. It's a subsidy, grant. We know that end of the month, and we really hope for you that we can offer you that. That is why we are also making these living labs. If you are so good that you can come in such a living lab, you get the BEP paid. The price about the individual projects?
Yes. So what... So what Julietta was telling is about the integrated program. That is, let's say, a fixed fee. For the individual program, you have to select these modules by yourself. And some may be, let's say, 200 euros per module. Others maybe 500 euros. That is a little bit up to you. What I can say is that the costs for the meetings, so the 3 meetings with the committee are all together. You pay it before each meeting. You don't have to pay it in one time. Altogether are 960 euros. And that is what is known by now. And within short term, the different providers will announce their costs. And one reason it has taken some time is that everybody's trying to keep the costs as low as possible. So initially, many of these costs were higher, and we have all tried to get them as low as possible. So, but for the, let's say, the independent route, it's a little bit up to you. It can be cheaper than the integrated route, but it could also be more expensive. But that's more up to you.
Do you expect that it gets competitive? I mean, if more providers occur on the market,
yes,
prices can get...
Yes, then the price will maybe lower, although there's another aspect we have to take into consideration. if, for instance, this integrated program, if there would be 10 providers, then it's not a good, proper business case, because then they have per provider not enough people. So it's also in the interest of the providers to get as many people as possible, because the more people which are in this program, the lower costs it will be.
I'm not sure if it's possible for the other room to ask questions, actually, but perhaps if you scream really loud. Any questions here? Please. Yeah.
Well,
thank you. Why has PEP the monopoly? That's the.
Yeah. Well, no, because if the price of the PEP is too high, then most people will take the independent route and try to get it cheaper. So there is, but I can tell you that all the costs which are now known are not really commercial costs. So I can assure you that there's no profit made or anything else. These are simply the costs. So what I have said, because this has been an issue from the very beginning, of course. Yes, it's an independent. It's a foundation. So it's not a commercial company. It's a foundation. I don't look into their books, but I know that and that is also for the other providers of the individual modules. They offer the lowest prices. Even the BNA has already told us that they will even charge lower prices than they do for their average courses. But the question is, so I can assure you that everybody is trying to keep the cost as low as possible, but therefore it's important to discuss how to get it financed. Because in other businesses, it's very common that an employer pays for this period. It's very common that you have a job which is properly paid. So it's not so strange that we say that if you have a job in an office, then the employer should pay the complete course or part. That is, we cannot interfere in the relation between the employer and employee, but that would be very logical, and that is what we also discuss, for instance, with BNA and other employers.
Question up there.
Well, the advantage, that's two questions actually. The first one is, what is the advantage for the employee, for the employer? That is, for the specific employer, is that the young candidate develops much quicker. You learn much more in short time. So compared to a situation where you don't have this situation, you can, as an employer, you can give them more work, more responsible work. So that goes much faster. I have the personal experience myself. I had also people in this experimental program. That goes much faster. So that is the advantage for an employer. in its own situation, but in general, for the profession, I think this is a big step in professionalizing the profession, because compared to other professions, I mentioned the lawyers already, but also others, this is much more standard. If people, so many people from this university will start working at Philips maybe, not you guys, but others, most of them have a training program for the first year or 2 years. And those firms are working much more professional than which is now so far in architecture practice. So it's also a step forward in this respect.
But that's up to the standards of Philips, not up to the general standards that you are now.
Yeah, but the difference is that, of course, we have this title registration, which is laid down in an act, in a law. And another point that you mentioned, it's true, you don't have to be registered to work. So that is also up to you. It's, of course, we would like everybody to register, but so far, that is also practice from the past. That's why in university, students were never really interested so much in this whole architects register, because you don't have to register. The only thing is, if you did not register, you cannot call yourself an architect, and you may also not present yourself as an architect. You're not allowed to present yourself as an architect. But that's up to you. So you don't have, there's no obligation if you finish your study on the 31st of January, that on the 1st of February you have to enter this program. Of course, we would recommend it, but there's no obligation.
Can you discontinue the process? Or do you have to finish it within the 2 years, or can you discontinue it and start over again when you get the money?
Yes, there are possibilities to discontinue. There's also options. This 2-year period is based that you work 4 days a week. For people who work less, then the 2-year period is extended accordingly, with a minimum of, I think, 20 hours. But it's also possible to postpone part of it within 6 years. So you have to do the whole thing once you start it. You have to do it within 6 years.
There's a question on the stairs there.
You said something about traineeships for all jobs, but at least they get a normal loan when they start. Do you have considered that when most people that finish their studies right now are working for an internship loan, and that they still have to pay their study, which you propose right now?
Well, I have news for you. Because that is illegal. First, I have to say that the architect register is not involved in the relation between employers and employees, so we don't have any position in that. But I know that there's a collective labor agreement for the architect profession, and every office who works in this business has to stick to this collective labor agreement. And within the context of this labor agreement, it is not allowed to hire people who have graduated for a traineeship loan, or for no wage loan at all. So I would, offices who are doing so, since recently they can receive a visit from authorities, and it is illegal. So if you are a young architect or are starting practicing soon, you can say that to an employer who wants to propose this to you.
Okay, front row.
Just like you mentioned, it's nearly impossible to get a job. And aside from being it hard to get a job, you also burden the employer by paying you the sum of nearly 7,000 euros, so I don't see any reason for them to do that. Which brings me to my question is, I'll be going abroad, I'll be working in the Middle East right after my study. How does that work? Do I have to come back when? And do I need to have a Dutch mentor as well? Does he needs to be registered with the Architectenregister?
Yeah. Okay, this is a typical personal question. Well, not. This is an individual question, and I would ask you to pose. Yes, two more.
Well, the question whether you're...
In general, I've said that, so you, afterwards you can ask it more in detail, but in general, it is supposed that you can work abroad, have a mentor abroad. The only thing is that you have to come back for these meetings with the committee. The intake meeting, inter-meeting, and a final meeting.
It's a good reason. Good reason to return to Holland.
But if you,
we have room for more questions. In the back,
but that
please.
makes sense because if you want to register in the Netherlands, you will come over anyway every now and then for these meetings.
Your turn in the back there, please.
Yes. Yes, you can get an exemption, a partly exemption, dus een gedeeltelijke vrijstelling, if you have done a traineeship before or work experience before, as long as you can prove what you have done and that it meets one or more of these requirements. And you have to. That is an aspect of the first intake meeting. You can discuss that with the committee, and we have. Initially, it was said it always had to be after your master, but we have opened it a possibility that if you have done a traineeship during your studies or worked during your studies in an office, that this experience can also count, but for, let's say, a part of this period. Yeah. Yes, because then, for instance, you follow less modules, so you don't have to pay for that. Well, that depends what kind of program you want to do. If you are in the integrated program, I have to look at Julieta. I can't tell you about that. But if you do the independent route, then it's more or less up to you.
I think that you really have to consider if that's smart, to do it as quick as you can. 2 years are really not very long. Take those 2 years. Don't try to get 1 month here, 1 month there. If you do the individual projects, you can do this. But if you are working in the group, it's really smart just to come, to do the project, to do the program.
I think time is not the
a
problem.
lot.
Time might not be the restriction. I think money might be the restriction.
Yeah, but how do you know that this person has done this project, that person has done that? He is from Delft, he is from Eindhoven, he is from Wageningen. What do you know? How do we know what they know? That's, you also come into this university with a different start.
It's getting really excited now. Before I give someone, you're the next question up there, it might be useful for you to know that we as a faculty are considering very seriously to offer modules also in the future. We are discussing. Yeah, although it's not that... It will not be an integrated program. It will only be the modules, and we are starting with it. So don't applaud too early. It's your turn.
We try to make as much living labs as we can organize. So wait and see how many places we can organize, and we really try to make as much as places as we can get. So we try to help you. Of course, it's like winning the Archie-Prix. If you win the Archie-Prix, you are maybe the best, and yeah, you get a place somewhere. That's how it goes. But we try to make as much places as we can. I promise.
Just one or two questions before we go to the individual round and we leave. We have to leave this room. Are there any more?
Yes, but maybe to answer that more in general, of course, you can only do this period if you have a job. So either at an office or in a municipality or other organization, if you have a job, or if you are self-employed, if you have your own office. Of course, we cannot provide jobs. So hopefully, we see now that the market is going up a little bit, and I know that there are many offices who are now thinking about hiring new personnel, and my experience that if they hire new personnel, that they will hire young architects. So that may be hopeful, but still it will be difficult to get a job in the first place in the Netherlands at this moment.
In the very back, Erik. Isn't this just good news for everybody who graduates before January?
It's not the question that you have the title, it's the question that the way you can work, what kind of architect you are, what kind of responsibilities you can take. That's what they want. They are not looking to the title, I promise, really. But they already do that now. A lot of those people from those groups, they paid the 6,000 euros for them, really.
But the number of students that graduate is more per year is more than 50, but it's not that many. So the number of students in architecture that graduates is about 200 a year, something like that.
I think we have to close this meeting, and we have to leave this room anyway. There's room for personal questions upstairs by some of us. Thank you very much to all.